Welcome to this pre-recorded webinar presented by the Special Education Department for Jersey City Public Schools. In this session, we will discuss how to actively engage students in learning. Communication regulators and attention signals are extremely important before we start to engage our students in group discussions or partner chat. These regulators must be modeled and reinforced. You must emphasize that you expect full alert attention in under 5 seconds and that you will never, ever, under any circumstance, talk over students to get their attention. Model and explain different voice levels for various activities. During a group voice, your voice level is a 2. So students in the group can hear you, but students not in the group should not be able to hear you. When you're presenting in front of the class, that's a voice level of a 3. It's loud enough for the entire class to hear. Model voice level of a 0. No talking is silent. Voice level 1. Only the person next to you can hear. Voice level 4. This is always my favorite to model. Think about a sports event, a concert, or the playground. Students love to participate in that voice level 4. Quiet signals, or also known as a management signal. Teacher places her hand up. She looks around. Other students see her or him, and they put their hand up. Everyone is now looking at the teacher, listening for directions. Teacher can also use the clap signal, where the teacher claps their hands. Student repeats the clap. Keep on clapping until you have the whole class attention. Not only do you have their attention, but remember, it's supposed to be silent and eyes are on you. Here's some examples of call and response, where the teacher says something and the students will respond. For example, the teacher might say, "Ready, set," and the students say, "You bet." My favorite one to use in the class is "Class, class," and the students will say, "Yes, yes." And I like this one because I can change my speed, my tone, and my volume. So I might say, "Class, class," and the students say, "Yes, yes." Or I might say, and the students will say, especially the little ones, they really love to do call and response. They're waiting to hear what you say so that they can repeat something back, and they're not having to use that voice level of a 0 or a 1. They're actually actively saying something in the class. Tell me and I forget. Teach me and I remember. Involve me and I learn. Benjamin Franklin. So that goes back to what we're discussing today. Involve me, have me actively participating in my learning, and I'm going to learn. Where if you tell me, I might forget. Here's one example of how we can get our students to actively participate and actively learn. It's called corners. The teacher announces corners and then announces the choice for each of the corners in the room. Students are given a think time to make the choice. They write the name of the corner on the piece of paper, but should not discuss it with anyone. Teacher will then say, "Please go to your chosen corner." When they arrive at their corner, they pick a partner to speak with. They discuss the reason or reasons for their choice. Teacher will then select a few students from each corner to share what his or her partner has shared. So not only are they actively participating, they're actively engaged, but they're also being active listeners because I have to now tell the teacher what my partner told me. Here's an example of a quick corners that you can use. What season is your favorite? Autumn, winter, spring, summer. So if I picked my corner, it'd be summer. And now I'm going to discuss with my partner why I picked summer, because I like to relax at the beach. Think, pair, share. We can use this throughout all content areas. Pose a question. Student has that think time again. Think to themselves. You might need to adjust the think time. 30 seconds for kindergarten is a lot. Students will turn to their partner and share their response. Then they share the response with the class. So why are these team building activities important? Team builders are quick activities that could be content free. They are meant to set a positive tone within a small group. Teams should consist of 3 to 5 students to create a cooperative and caring group that will work well together. Now, research shows that teams of 4 work best for any type of group work or team building activity. So why is the number 4 this magical number for team building? Well, in a group of 4, I can have 2 pairs. So that avoids an odd man out. It increases a variety of different background knowledge, different vision of what we're seeing when we're discussing the project. It also has students working to maximize interaction. What exactly is this active learning? Active learning involves providing opportunities for the students to meaningfully talk, listen, write, read, and reflect on content, ideas, issues, and concerns of an academic subject. Now, on a daily basis, we always make sure that students are reading and writing and listening. We give them opportunities to talk, but I really like the idea of reflecting on the content. Something to think about when you teach your next lesson. Here's some alarming stats. So think about your 45-minute block here when I begin to read the stats. Students are not attentive to what is being said in a lecture 40% of the time. Students retain 70% of the information in the first 10 minutes of a lecture, but only 20% in the last 10 minutes. Meaning that first 10 minutes of your lecture and that last 10 minutes of your lecture are the most important. Very alarming. Why incorporate active learning techniques? It creates a sense of community in the classroom because students are interacting with each other and the instructor is interacting with the students. It allows collaboration through pairs and through group work. It helps us practice those important life skills. Collaboration. They're going to have to collaborate for the rest of their life, right? It helps us to motivate our students to want to learn by providing personal connections to the material. How can you incorporate these active learning strategies into various classroom settings? Well, classroom management is extremely important before you even try to tackle incorporating any active learning strategies. So use activities to draw attention to issues and content you feel are most critical. Establish those rules of conduct and encourage appropriate participation. Remember earlier we discussed model, model, model. Introduce the activity and explain the learning benefit. Control the time by giving students a time limit to complete the task. After you stop the activity, debrief. Give the students time again to reflect. Let them share their thoughts and tie it into the next steps of your lecture. Here we have a lovely picture of a teacher with her hands up, and the students are actively engaged in the lesson. Their hands are up. Types of active engagement can include a group oral response, paired partner responses, individual oral responses, written responses, or physical responses. We want to make sure that we include a variety of these responses in each lesson, or definitely in each day. Keep it fun. I would even like to add to this active responding. If the answer is to, please stand up. If the answer is not to, please sit down. If the beginning sounds is stand up. If it's not, sit down. A mix of these instructional methods with lecturing only for 10 to 15 minutes, followed by your 3 or 4 minute active learning interval, is an extremely effective technique. When you're beginning to implement this into your classroom, make sure you keep it short and simple. Use these low impact strategies such as think, pair, share. They're easy to implement and almost certain to be successful after you provided adequate time for students to view you modeling. Just because students are active, it doesn't mean that they're engaged and that they're learning something. So keep that in mind. Just because they are actively speaking to each other doesn't mean that they're learning something. They might be talking about the soccer game that happened last night. Simply putting students in groups does not constitute an active learning activity. Here's some additional management tips that you need to think of before you implement cooperative learning. Consider 4 elements. What is my goal? What is the outcome I expect my students to have? What procedure should they follow? and the time limit for the activity. Use these strategies to keep control of the classroom during active learning activities. Don't forget that think time is that student period of uninterrupted silence where they can complete the appropriate information processing task, feelings, and actions. Communicating learning using silent signals. So the teacher is going to, or the students are going to communicate without saying a sound. So it's called a nonverbal or a silent signal. And you can use these signals in math, in reading, in social studies, science, throughout the content area. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Here we have a symbol for how to say yes in the class, how to say no. Bathroom sign, walk. So if you're in the middle of a read aloud and the student has to go to the restroom, they don't have to raise their hand and say, I have to use the restroom. They can show you the sign for bathroom and you can nod yes or no. If you want to know what is the answer for 2 plus 2, is it 4? Show me your nonverbal yes or no. They can show you the fist for yes or they can show you the fist for no. If a student wants to make a comment, they can give you the letter C in sign language. If they have a question, they can give you the letter I. If they have an answer, they can show you the letter A. If they need a moment or you need a moment, they can show you one finger up. If I want to communicate with my students to line up, there's a hand gesture or thank you, lights off or lights on. These are all forms of nonverbal communication that also will help with classroom management. Now, once the classroom management is perfect, ready to go, let's actively engage our students, including movement and allowing them to get out of their seats and move around, right? So all students get to participate. All good learning has a social base, and students often learn more by interacting with peers than any other means because they learn from each other. So when you see your students are starting to fade and they need a little bit of a break and they need to get that oxygen moving, we can implement those quick active learning activities. We can also include brain breaks. Go Noodle is a favorite of mine. So these are simple, quick exercises or games designed to recharge the students, recharge yourself as well. The brain needs this movement to enhance learning. It increases energy, which increases oxygen and blood flow. It makes learning more fun. And fun and play always increase learning effectiveness. Here's a quick video on universal design for learning. Now, why did I put a universal design for learning video inside of an active learning webinar? Because universal design for learning is important for us to keep in mind when we're planning these activities. We need to think and make sure that we're removing barriers to help students become more engaged, because not every student is going to follow the same path to obtain the knowledge learned. Here's a quick video.
This is Ken, and these are Ken's classmates. This is their teacher. He has a goal for them and has asked them all to follow the same path to reach that goal. Some of the students follow the path with no complications, easily and quickly reaching the goal. Some students may wander off the path and need additional assistance staying on track. For some students, however, the path is completely inaccessible, presenting barriers that make it impossible for them to reach the goal. This is where Universal Design for Learning comes in. UDL recognizes and values the variability that exists in students' backgrounds, abilities, and interests, and helps educators design curricula that removes barriers to learning. By providing different paths to reach the same goal, UDL supports the different ways in which learners take in information, express what they know, and engage in learning.
So different paths to obtain the same knowledge. Very impactful. Now we're going to review some questioning strategies and why is it important to question students in the while you're teaching content. Teachers ask questions for a variety of purposes, including to involve students in the lesson, to increase motivation and interest, to make sure the students are prepared, to check that they completed their work, to develop those critical thinking skills that are so important for our daily life, to review previous lessons. How much did the students actually remember? To assess mastery, to nurture insights. Research shows that instruction involving questioning is more effective than instruction without questioning. Here are some of those examples for Bloom's taxonomy that we all learned while we were in school. So remembering is at the bottom. That's the easiest type of question. And going up, we go to understanding, apply, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. Here's another example of Bloom's buttons, where the purple is the lowest level thinking question and creating is the highest. How can I check the level of a lesson to answer these questions? So you can keep those 3 diagrams or 3 visuals that I just showed you in mind, or here's simple 2 questions that you can ask yourself. What will the students be doing in the lesson? Are they recalling and showing an understanding, which is a lower level question? Or are they analyzing, evaluating to create a product, which is a higher questioning strategy? Will students be expected to respond with specific known answers, lower, that's a recall, or will it be asked to generate an original thought? That's higher. Thinking questions. Ways you can use visual information in your lesson. Teacher poses a problem or provides a task to which there are multiple possible answer steps or procedures. In pairs, students take turns passing the paper and pencil, each writing an answer or making a contribution. Here's some more ways that you can use pair share. By rally reading, one partner reads a passage, the other picks up where the first left off. So that's also going to make sure that the students are paying attention to where their partner's reading. Paraphrase, another good way to check. One person tells the other the target information, and the second partner has to restate in other words. They can act it out, roles and actions from a story. They can interview. Each partner asks questions within a role or related to content. And we all know that students love to ask questions. There's a mix and match game that you can use where each student receives a card with a word, a picture, or a symbol. The students are going to walk around the room until they find a person who has the match to their card. When they find their matching partner, they stand next to each other. After time is called, the class reviews the answer for accuracy. The cards are mixed and repeated, and you can repeat this 2 to 5 times, as many as desired. There's something called mix, pair, share. And in this card, each vocabulary word is printed on the front of one card, and each word meaning is printed on the front of another meaning card. Each student's going to receive a card. The students will stand up and put a hand up, and they're going to put their hand up while they're searching for the partner. When they find their partner, they're going to lower their hands. When all the hands are down, the teacher has each pair share their word and the meaning to verify that the match is correct. Then the partner with the matching cards are given time to plan out how to teach the class the new vocabulary word. Pairs may teach the word by making an illustration, using props, or acting it out, but they are not allowed to use the word itself. Then each pair gets a turn to present their word to the class, and the class gets to guess the word. Showdown. Here's another example, and students actually enjoy these. Question cards are stacked in the middle of the table, and a showdown captain is selected who draws the first card and reads it to the group. All students individually answer the question, and when finished, the students signal the captain. The showdown captains call showdown. Teammates show their answer, and the captain checks. If correct, the team celebrates. If not, the team has to reteach and then celebrate. And then you select a new captain. Choice boards are another way that we can implement active learning and also helps with that UDL that we discussed earlier. So choice boards add a new dimension to your classroom. It offers an alternative to a standard assessment, and it empowers the students to choose how they show they mastered a topic. And you can use that for assessments, you can use that for homework or classwork. It incorporates students into the process and input on how they like to demonstrate what they've learned. Here's some example of choice boards. Choose 3 activities to do. When you finish an activity, color the box. There's a math tic-tac-toe. Choose 3 activities in a tic-tac-toe design. Fraction choice boards. Here's a spelling tic-tac-toe and a reading choice board. Read a chapter, write a summary about it, make a comic strip. Does this book remind you of another book? Why? Now, you don't have to reinvent the wheel because if you do a Google search for a choice board of content that you're teaching, you will find several examples. Here's a wrap up to why it's important to increase student engagement.
Hi everyone, this is Carrie Cole with Side by Side Educational Consulting, where we work side by side with educators to improve outcomes for all kids. We're in the middle of a really great video series right now on the 5 secrets to a highly engaged classroom. In our previous video, we talked about the difference between content and delivery. We honed on that in on that a little bit further by thinking about the content being the think ratio and the delivery increasing the participation ratio. And what I'd like to really expand a little bit further today in our second video is this idea of the difference between engagement and active participation, because that active participation is important in that idea of think ratio and participation ratio. We want to make sure that all kids are participating, and not only that, making sure that all kids are participating, but making sure that they're participating often so that they're getting lots of practice opportunities. So let's think about this idea of engagement versus active participation. I think right now, this idea of engagement and talking about engagement in education, it's a big deal. Everyone's talking about it, it's a buzzword. And I'm concerned that we're not really being nuanced enough when we think about that idea of what engagement really is. So I'm going to just talk about engagement from an active participation standpoint. When we look at just engagement, there's lots of different ways that you could perceive engagement. For example, if I walked in a classroom and a teacher was teaching and all of the students were sitting at their desks, maybe they were listening, nodding their heads, I might say, yeah, that looks like a lot of active participation. That looks really great. But what I would challenge you to think about is, are they truly engaged or are they just compliant? Are they just on task? Because there's a difference between on task or compliant behavior in a classroom and real, true engagement. So I want you to differentiate between engagement, which can be misconstrued as on task or compliant, and really take it to the next level, which is active participation. What I would tell you is this: true engagement means kids are actively participating in a way that is visible. The learning is visible, so you're not going to be wondering whether the kids are learning. If they're just sitting there listening, you would be wondering. There's nothing visible about their learning in that one moment. What you would see if there's true active participation in the classroom is that the learning is visible and you have proof of their learning. It could be things like they turn to their partner and talk about what they just learned. They turn to their partner and summarize what they just read. They turn to their partner and reflect on a question that the teacher just posed. That would be one way to visibly see learning happening in the classroom, and that would be active participation. Another way that you could think about active participation is think about it from a perspective of writing. So if kids are writing about their learning, then that would be considered active participation as well. Active participation in writing doesn't mean just simply taking notes. It means that you're doing something with your learning, doing something productive. So you're taking what you've learned and doing something with it. And if they're writing about their learning, that would be visible. I could see learning happening. If I walked into a classroom and saw kids working on a science experiment, talking about what they're learning in their science experiment, that would be visible learning. That's active participation. If I walked into a classroom and saw kids showing what they learned, maybe they were acting out their vocabulary words, learning is visible to me. That would be active participation. That would mean that kids are actively participating in their learning and it was visible to me. So when we think about the difference, again, between just engagement and active participation, I want you to take engagement to that next level and say, it's not true engagement unless the learning is visible. Okay, that wraps up this idea of engagement and active participation, which is our second secret to a highly engaged classroom. Tune in for the next video when we look at the third secret to a highly engaged.
So just because they're chatting doesn't mean that they're actively participating or actively engaged in the task. So it's important to make sure that they reflect on the content. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to jvaldora@jcboe.org. I hope you enjoyed this pre-recorded webinar.